Okay, so thank you for attending today's webinar. I think that this is the final webinar that talk about standard essential patterns and 5G and 6G related innovation and especially the AI, agentic AI related material. So I will skim over because I already shared the detail deep dive analysis as a white paper and then share in chat. So, let me show. Okay, so I just prepare many things, but I'm going to just skim over and then just touch upon the very essential part, and then I mostly focus on live demos because this is a good opportunity. You look at it, there will be a lot of people will be maybe curious about how Agentic actually have to the 6G innovation, right? So I'm going to share my idea. Okay, so what's the differentiate from the 60 from other is AI native. Because this morning I invite from I3 like AI powers next generation innovation research kind of group. So there was the innovation expert in relate the future of the future telecommunication network based on AI. And then I shared that the 60 why they are AI native and what's the difference from other generations. So basically it required a paradigm shift. So the 1 to 5Z, the kind of like standard they call deterministic, right? Because if you, for example, in the standard, what they're doing is all the technical details are described, and then they are all rule-based. It's kind of like they think about the part of the like, for example, protocol, like usually implement in software. So usually they think about the algorithmic deterministic, right? Because you think about the code, right? The code algorithm is all determined, right? Predetermined, right? And then tested it once viable, then it is fixed, right? And then software just compile it and run, right? It's the same thing. So standard like step specification define all the like protocols related to implement as a standard to have to communication and networking everything, right? So, but in 6G, it's somewhat different because of the every layer of this telecommunication, including the AI embedded protocols. So it's somewhat different, right? So it is not deterministic, right? Because like, even if you don't, even if you're starting from the same algorithm, right? Because what kind of like data you train, what kind of data actually to utilize, what kind of thing actually to learn, the outcome is completely different. So that's why the 60 is completely AI native, right? Is every protocol everywhere is AI embedded, and it's not just it's just the extra tool like it's supporting from cloud, right? For example, the 6G kind of like device will be just the embed AI itself, right? It's not the supporting through the context through the API. So this required AI native paradigm, right? Because think about AI native, right? Because the all the previous think about it should be changes, right? So for example, the protocol behavior becomes a model defined rather than rule defined, right? Because as I mentioned, resource allocation, mobility decision, coding strategy, interference, all required through this like a telecom network at the end of the wireless communication. It should be kind of like a non-rule based as it defined like just the rule based the coding protocol scheme, right? And then they are semantic communication, right? So rather than before they're just changing bit, there's the information like a 0, 1. Now they transmitting, they're connecting meaning because of AI. So it's a somewhat different paradigm is required. And then architecture also different. It's learning, right? Because everywhere can learn, right? So it's somewhat is a dynamic, right? So for example, in another layer is a digital twin is enabled, right? And also like a federated distributed intelligence become essential for scalability. So that's why the traditional standardization has some limitation. So for example, current standard rely on deterministic process and static clause, right? 3GPP, I2R, workflow assume a fixed state machine and then unchanging interface, right? The actually the entities actually developing this all different type of standard they call SDR, standard developed organization, whether they have never experienced this, so they have any experience and knowledge, right? And usually the standard like activities is usually operated by the traditional telecom engineer as actually they are not AI native because they are not educated and trained and experienced implementing AI. So in the network, they are traditional kind of like wireless engineers. So working in this space is completely different mind of the like people and then framework required. So and also like for example the risk of fragmentation opacity. So cross vendor specific AI model is slightly interpolated, right? Because it should be interpolated, but usually the nature of AI. So there should be something different. Like if a standard does not define access acceptable behavior, update the rules cross model interface information will diverge rapidly, right? So and then in the like in custom model governance, disallow reliability and sovereign guarantees. So that's why that new R&D paradigm is needed, right? Because you have in mind that usually the R&D in this process is usually called standard innovation because every essential part of this R&D should be implement as a standard and then standard specifications. So the people to like for example to implement a standard to their product they call standard compliant product they are like interoperable in the globally, right? And then so for this kind of thing legacy R&D assumes static functionality and the slow release cycle, right? So usually waterfall style workflows the concept contribution alignment implementation cannot be matched the speed and dynamism of AI system. And the AI native R&D depend on simulation first, evidence first iteration. And so interdisciplinary co-creation replaces a siloed exercise. So, for example, the characteristic of AI native innovation is a dynamic alignment of model behavior with evolving specification and continuous provenance tracking across model life cycle and explainability and risk metrics embedded into contributions. So industry-wise, because in historically is now is not yet officially start succeed because still we are five. They call five is advanced is a final staging that they're working to finalize, and then they started to start for this 60. So, but there is a like industry that vendors are building energy innovation stack. So company like Nokia, Samsung, Ericsson are developing this kind of algorithm. And Series PP is one of the SDO. So they are exploring more parameter open model flex design, right? So having said that, we need to think about that the traditional standard innovation, and then what should be the changes. So as I told you, the rule-based logic to behavior-based specification, right? Because of AI is all the layer, right? Because once you have a same model, even if they have a different type of the like learning and the training, there will be the outcome of a complete different behavior. So deterministic cloud logic collapse, the adaptive model-driven behavior, and so the legacy specification and define behavior explicitly under fixed condition, but network act via trained model whose behavior vary with data context interference. So it is come as different layers you need to implement in the standard specification. So standard must shift from defining procedure to defining acceptable behaviors, right? So So governance must focus on robustness, explainability, fairness, and drift tolerance, and semantic fidelity. So behavior boundaries rather than the procedure sequence. So a specification surface become broader and more dynamic, right? Because the complexity grows as standard define constraint for certain. So emergent model-driven outcome rather than just enumerating deterministic cases. So it's a documents and contribution model centric kind of artifact, right? Because 60 contribute increasing includes trained model, right? Because it's AI involved, and behavior evidence is required. And then so model lineage in problem become essential to accessibility. And then it's kind of like in that everything that the model should be the become the first question to the artifact. Okay, so even the linear release cycles usually that the cycle, for example, standard activities usually they follow like for example the for 5Z that their standard activities in the they call like the release type, right? For example, that the 5Z starting from the release kind of like a 15 and then 16 and then 17 and then 18 and then they follow linearly, right? And then as more advanced feature implement something like that. But this is somewhat different in 16 because of AI model evolve, right? Continuously. So even if starting in the earlier release and then depending on the AI model evolve, there will be a complete outcome and a complete way to actually implement, right? So even if you it's not just the way actually to finish off one version and second version, it's not like that. It's keep going on in so that's retraining, fine tuning, and drift means that the 16 network intelligence changes over time. That's very so after release cycles have a close, right? So it should be the repeated of, again and back to the previous release. It's somewhat different the standard process. So must support ongoing behavior adjustment without fragmentation. And then so it's kind of like should be live, not static, and it's dynamic. And then it require, as mentioned, it not just for example telecom engineering, just one specific area. There cross domain collaboration is required. And then also simulation, right? Is because every AI is somewhat their behavior should be clarified through the simulation or the actual like a test learning, something like that, right? So the paper-based argument are insufficient, right? Verifying model behavior. So simulation-backed validation is literally mandatory for essentiality adoption. And then embedding traceability and recoverability by design is it needed. So, and then also this is just the currently the concern about how to implement the standard process. And then, so in the future, native standard process because of dynamic, right? Is once done and then fixed is not the same story that you can do in the 60. So AI native 60 man the paradigm shift beyond the legacy workflow. And so there is a kind of like AI understand that must be built through the human AI collaboration is required. So so challenges, right? Procedure inertia, like a legacy speaking work. So we are already 2Z to 6G. We have up to 5Z. We have already well set up the workflow, and then there is the systemically the well set up to one, right? But it's a paradigm change does not mean that you can adopt, right? So a legacy specification is kind of like workflow that still will dominate, right? A standard workflow is optimized for deterministic logic, not adaptive intelligence like AI native feature. So contribution must be expressed as a fixed clause and frozen into 18 to 20 months release cycle, but it is not the way actually because of the dynamic behavior. And the ANF system cannot be captured through the traditional clause drafting, right? Because the probabilistic behavior based on AI learning dynamics context sensitive have no formal pathway into specification, causing many proposals to be dismissed as premature or non-standardizable. So And then also like a fragmentation is, for example, AI-6 require the synthesis across engineering, AI, simulation, ethics, and governance. All stakeholders to be getting together. It is somewhat usually the standard process is consensus process, right? And so it's very difficult in the different mind, different expertise, the different goal, and this so different like this stakeholders, the consensus about is very different. The governance is another problem. So they can be fragmented. And then model life cycle infrastructure. So it's a new paradigm. So it's not well set up. So it's not. It's just a kind of like maybe initially try and error. Like it's, what is the best the model life cycle infrastructure is not yet determined. So, and then validation and verification gap, right? Rule-based validation is a breakdown under probabilistic behavior, but the AI system requires assurance, fairness, robust safety. So different layers of validation, verification it needs, and we need to find out how to do. And as I mentioned, the governance, trust, and transparency is required because of AI, right? And then it is not the consider in the traditional SDRs, so that is another the difficulties we need to be overcome. And then Schubert cognitive overload, right? Because the expert team already have faced overwhelming complex in evolving specification, right? So it will be like a native addition multiply cognitive load, like all different kind of aspects should be considered. So this is why actually I just introduced agentic AI to supporting the human cognitive overload, right? And so, and then systematic barriers still exist, right? Because challenge is structural, not incremental, and across entire standard ecosystem. So unlocking AI and FCC required a new kind of like innovation scaffolding. Okay, so I just give you the main topic. Just understanding that it'll be difficult and the new paradigm required, right? New way of the innovation in for the standard require, and then everything is not determined yet. So through this complexity, that based on my like understanding here, they are very strong to supporting to untangle this complex situation. So, for example, the overcoming procedure inertia. So it can be addressed all the like limitation and the challenges drawn by the AI native 60. And so it is just to explain a little bit about it. So I will skim over because you can read this one. Actually, I'm gonna show you the demo. So and then this is one actually the how the it is just theoretically show that how agentic AI can overcome, right? But so it's conceptually they can do, but actually the actually implement what it happens. So I want to show you some demo that how the agentic AI can support for this new type of the like a standard innovation required. Okay, so 60 SEP in AI native. So different type of the paradigm shift in the standard development process, and also like it changing the they call standard essential pattern because standard essential pattern is based on standard, so that they cover the scope of the standard. Usually, this is patent, so it is described in their claim. So claim is their legal boundary that what kind of right they have it over some part of the standard. So by space term, that if you want to be SAP, then every current term should be mapped over at least one mandatory feature of the standard, right? So that's what they call essentiality. So essentially verification requires previously just like a text to text mapping, right? Because clouds mapping, right? But it will be complex, right? Because it's a verification requires, for example, simulation, digital twin evidence, some kind of different layer, the additional layers are required. And then claim must be addressed AI lifecycle method and governance. So they will care about dynamic nature of AI. I think that this is very similar happen that for example that the in the healthcare there is a medical device they call like a AI enabled medical device, and then the comply of the process is required because of this dynamic nature. So once they intended some use of some specific part of the healthcare, but actually that they evolve, and then their intended use initiate can be changes over by because of the AI and retraining or the self-learning, whatever. So this is very similar situation happen. And then in standard and SAP should be in the parallel challenges, right? Because pattern drafting is somewhat different, and then so that the life cycle is uncertain. That so what features as a standard product actually the unit will cover in the standard SAP pattern is a somewhat very complicated ways you need to do. Okay, and then so that's what I propose anti pattern expert co-file. Actually, that I show some demo before about this. So what this is doing is that they just mimic the pattern expert. So pattern expert, the user, for example, I'm expertise drafting standard SS patterns. So I know about how to do. So it will be the implement in the using the like agentic AI and the agent AI to understand what you're doing for the pattern development, and then it will be like boost by like a self-learning and then other memory tools they can use it, and then it will be supporting. But actually, this agentic AI they're self-learning over the iteration. They will be getting more smarter. So it will have you more. So so this is a basic scheme uh, that I proposed before that agentic AI can support even your pattern drafting and pattern development in even with a complex situation, because they will be kind of like they also like expect what the model behavior in the outcome, and then they think about what might be potential the claim terms should be the captured in the emerging standard specification that will be included in the standard process. So I show you the reference. What this means the 60 IP readership, because now starting like all the latest stakeholders, every like a big company in telecom, consumer electronics, and then like a Qualcomm and Ericsson, Nokia, Samsung, and LG, and other kind of like for example Japanese the companies, and like a Taiwan company, Chinese company, all involved in 6G. So 100 companies collaborate. And then what this mean by this is that companies using ADN Copilot will gain or decide a competitive advantage. And then so essentially will be assessment will be shifted toward the simulation back to validation. And the beauty is that this is agentic AI, so they can to simulate, right? Because this is one advantage that they don't need extra simulation required, right? It's a part of this agentic AI done simulation to verify. And so many advantages you can look at it. So I'm gonna show you a live demo, because this through that you will understand that what is meant by agentic 660 expert co-file framework, especially for the standard innovation. So this is I will show you shortly after this just the explanation the why this demo matter. So 60 is AI native, and meaning in the protocol behavior driven by adaptive model rather than deterministic algorithm. So this make traditional 3GPP clouds by clouds workable inefficient, as they cannot easily accommodate model driven learning process and semantic behavior. So standard bodies face rising complexity as they attempt to align AI, sensing, compute, semantic layer, and then non-terrestrial network type integration. So the demo shows how the co-filer augment human experts to handle this cross-domain convergence. So innovation cycles must be accelerated while maintaining trust, rigor, and governance. So the co-filer introduce a new way to meet this requirement without breaking existing process. And then so in the demo, what you're doing is Copilot is that They synthesize wireless AI sensing, compute, and governance knowledge into a unified reasoning layer. So their co-filer interpret technical logic across the screen and structure it into standard compliance language, and the track AI model lifecycle and province for standardized transparency. And also like a verified AI native proposal using digital twin and federate testbed. It itself can be a testbed and digital twin. And also the procedure clouds already up aligned with the 3HB ITU and ETL process. And then, so the specific demo that you will see is that it's interpretation of an AI-driven 60 scenario, so innovation scenario. It take it and then into structure standard relevant function. So the co-filer convert intuitive or high-level descriptions of AI behaviors into technical elements suitable for all the protocol layers. And cross-domain synthesis align AI logic with the protocol expectation and to provide the right. So, without continuing, actually, it's better to show you that demo. Okay, so let me see. Share again. So you now can see I implement using ChatGPT is all my agent is functioned by the prompt engineering. So this is one. So adding a 60 co-filer interactive demo. So this is AI new standard innovation, end-to-end live simulation. So in demo start, so issue welcome to Agentic co-filer. So it's a next-gen multi-agent coding system designed to augment 3GPP, ITU, and ETI experts in building AI native 60 standard. So this demo shows how the co-filer transforms standard development. So it gives you the power to support you to develop standard. So it kind of like, for example, that it try to overcome procedure in it here. So traditionally work for a deterministic slow. So the co-filer enters autonomous reasoning agent that proactively surface gaps, align clouds, and suggest normative text and translating AI behavior into standard ready procedure. So this is all that I describe as some kind of challenging in the 60 AI native standard innovation. So 60 will rely on learning system. So the co-filer convert AI function. So predict inference decision coming into the verifiable standard compliant behavior and synthesizing cross-domain reasoning. So AI specialists, RAN engineer, and all kind of like expert, they are each can be assigned to some specific agent. So an architect rarely share the unified view. So this system merge all domain into single core reasoning layer, right? Because it used to be working in the different stakeholders, different layer of the domain specific like expertise, but they will be one single courseable reasoning layer and validating AI function using digital twins and also like in embedding in governance lifecycle traceability and the many things that they address. So, demo is a starting scenario interpretation and standard alignment and cross-domain synthesis and AI governance simulation and contribution drafting. So, actually, it also like a final outcome will be it'll be implementing the standard activities and then contribute to drafting. So it can be like the part of the drafting in the future, sort of the consensus they will implement in the formal standard specification. So it have you to, in addition to like R&D and directly related standard, actually they also like have you to like put into this study as a part of some standard. Okay, so because there are many cases, this case is just a few. So just assume that you are developing a standard innovation, right? And then the scenario will be, for example, AI native predictive beam management and semantic communication for extended reality, integrate sensing and communication, and digital twin driven LAN optimization, something like that, blah, blah. There are multiple. So actually, I just give you some example, but the final thing that maybe if actually implemented, if we understand the through the interaction with you, having you guide you that what you have in mind, and then it generates some viable scenario to understand, right? So, but anyway, because for example, then I want to working on it depending on the what you're working. So, for example, that I'm working on this a one like a scenario. So, so if you are in this R&D space, and you will understand, right? So, so in the scenario summary, that the current 5Z NR beam management is reactive. So it support you because you are R&D engineer, right? Because you know about the previous kind of standard innovation, and then you want to be improved, right? Because you know improve target implementation, and then you want to innovate, and then it should be like want to implement as a standard innovation and be put in there, and then in parallel you want to develop standard as a pattern related to this one, right? So and under this scenario, is it the agentic AI is try to support you your new innovative idea, right? So for example, the current state of art is this reactive. So beam failure must be occur before the system in initial cover procedure closing. So it try to find it kind of like very similar to like a new invention, right? It try to find a good topic to innovate, and then this support you based on in the current knowledge. You understand what the status of the current innovation before the 6G, and then it try to give you the insight about what kind of topic will be the new topic can be implemented as a new feature in the 6G based on the up to now in the 5G, right? And then it give you 6G AI native opportunity. So use AI predict beam degradation before failure. So the beauty of this one is it's a self simulation, right? So it just not just idea, right? And then it just think about based on then implement this one, and then it simulated, and then it try to find out whether it's viable and then or not, right? So using AI predict beam degradation before failure, and enabling the network to switch beams proactively and prevent outage and process recovery events, something like blah blah blah. It's as if you are doing engineering in this kind of like a new innovation, and then and then try to understand that whether this kind of new innovation can be included in the standard. So it should be very like the high potential of the adopted standard. So I try to do this kind of new innovation invention to standard interpretation, whether the based on previous standard and the potential standard will be included, that it can be the how you actually develop your innovation, standard innovation. So try to understand the standard, right? Because now translate your scenario into standard language, right? So for example, that in the 5Z, that it should be have a cover some standard context, and then there is a beam failure detection using deterministic triggers, and then it tried to find out AI native opportunity. What if it'll be implement using AI? And then AI model can infer that Vim qualifies something like the blah 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 blah. Here that it give you bioanalyzing this, and there is opportunity using AI, and then using that actually the standard element implication. So what kind of like the specification they can be put in here, right? So we just to analyze what kind of like a standard part they will be corresponding to this, and then in the standard representation, so introducing an AI assist predictive beam quality indicator that provides confidence-based early warning or beam degradation, enabling proactive beam switching before failure. The function must comply with the NR timing, something like that. So it gives you that insight about what kind of like a new innovation will be possible based on, and then it'll be the part of the standard. And then next step. And then apart from that, you have already specific like a topic you wanna innovate, and then it try to understand whether it can be like any kind of like a potential to be implemented in the future standard activities. For example, that it just to try to from the 5G that it'll be potentially will be like continue or expand to in the 60 under like release 20. And then what all exists is what potentially support idea and what normative gaps remain. And then it tried to find out the relevant strategic technical specifications. Actually, they once determined as a standard, they will be specified in some part of the specification. So, for example, that there is the physical layer and the procedure and many other things that the specific topic relate specification and technical report and look at all the potential kind of a document, the specification related to this innovation. So then it tried to give analysis a core insight. The current beam failure detection is deterministic and backward looking. So in everything in this specification, Oshima measurement thread must be crossed before action. But 16 need a forward looking beam procedure. So AI-based prediction is not yet integrated into this one. So the conclusion is that your scenario requires a new normative hook for AI-assisted prediction, the making this true AI native 6G innovation. So it supports your innovation process. And then, yes. So unifying land engineering and modeling, as you mentioned, that it is crossover domain synthesis required because this is one of the teamwork. So it will be supported as a team, right? This is where agentic AI co-pilot performs most important cognitive function, right? Translate an AI function into standard compliant multi-domain architecture behavior that can be normatively defined in 3GPP, right? So this is very important step. So AI developer input. So the system ingest like details by AI modeling, powering, predictive beam management. And so it's a model type, info features, and output structures, and experience interface writers. Everything is actually it required by you, right? Because this I'm not a like engineer to have expertise, but this is the AI to simulate the situation there. So AI developer should provide this input, and the standard implication is that this model must not violating training or reporting prediction in this specification. And then RAN engineer input. So and the governance requirement and digital twin simulation artifact and the unified standard ready interpretation. So through this process, actually, after synthesizing all domain, right? The co-filer generate the canonical standard compatible version of your innovation, right? So it should be modified because in the future standard compliant version of your innovation. So this is in standard innovation version. So an AI assist RAN function shall generate a predict beam quality indicator with associated confidential value. This PBQI shall be derived from valid CSI, something like that. This, if you are an engineer, then you understand, right? 'Cause, if I'm just let other people just look at it and then how much that actually agentic AI is very rigorous. The as an engineer co-filer and understand your framework and then provide based on like all the reasoning and knowledge to support you. So so for example, the PBQI indicate the beam degradation with confidence above or something, blah, blah, blah. right? So this text is intentionally standard native, right? So it you see that, right? So it provides some kind of terminology actually usually used in the standard specification. So it already convert every ring is in the standard native. And then life cycle properties integration. So embedding AI lifecycle governance. So yeah, as I mentioned, that AI is not static, so they're evolving, right? So it should be kind of like a lifecycle management is somewhat different. So AI feature cannot be standardized without clearly defined model provenance and training language explainability and drift and bias protection and many other things. So it take care of every aspect. And then it look at the whether standard relevance, the what part of standard it will be related. And then finally standard ready is now it's kind of like one of the that can be implemented in the standard. You're starting from scratch, innovation, R&D, and then looking at the potential to be included in the standard, and then blah 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 blah, and take care of every challenges. And now is output summary, right? Is standard ready. So the predictive beam management function shall include complete AI lifecycle governance. The PBQI model shall maintain provenance, data lineage, and drift monitoring, confidence and version mandate, everything, right? And then lifecycle control via OAM, the interface consists with some specification part like a TS 21105 or something like that. And then it validate whether this kind of like a standard innovation it can be validated. So like a self-test is it can be it's the agentic AI also function as is the twin validation. So yes. This step demonstrate one of the most important behavior in AI native standard. So no AI function can either switch between normative text without simulation evidence. So it tries to simulate and then it provide the environment because this is AI, right? So it's very good to they can be developed their own digital tooling to verify. So, simulate environment. So, system test the AI model across diverse real-world condition, right? So, dense urban mobility and high-speed train scenario. And Terra is kind of like a backbone heavy. So, it just to try to real-world or potential possibility to use case if you implement this as a standard, right? And output generated by the simulation validator, and then it have like a performance improvement metric, right? So for example, the beam failure, the event, and then baseline 100% is prediction, and then improvement, right? So it give you some simulate output, right? So for each radio link failure, and also like handover failure, throughput drop, and trace backbone grid, and timing validation, right? So the latencies, the measure, and then failure, virus evaluation, and safety analysis, and interpret evidence, right? And then explainability, and then finally that the validation result. So digital twin simulation confirmed that PBQI based predictive beam management meets timing, safety, fairness, and performance requirement and remains interoperable across vendors, frequency ranges, and mobility scenarios. And then the following step is to kind of governance and transparency integration. So this is a kind of like the once you finally that can be adopted in the standard, you have a standard innovation, And then look at the governance transfers, embedding cross SDO, AI, safety, accessibility. So it's a more like a macroscopic way to kind of house cross the governance of 3PA ATSI too. So it can be optional feature, although you will require that you can implement this one. And then standard ready alpha like AI is predict beam management shall provide interpretable prediction, and then everything that discuss about in here. And then it produces cloud ready. It can be ready to implement in some standard specification, right? And then release roadmap, diagram, evidence annex, and traceability. So it support you actually that you participate in standard activities and then try to do implementing your new standard innovation as a part of the standard, right? It's supporting you in like a cloud-ready normative text. So it give you that your innovation as if is a standard specification document, right? So it give you some idea that how to implement and draft this one. So usually what you need, for example, I experienced that I provide this kind of new innovation as a part of standard. Before I was a standard kind of expert and working for the South Korean government. And then after that, actually, I have a work with the several the Korean telecom industry. And then one experience that you have some innovation, right? And then like you participate in some relevant standard activities, SDOs, and then you have delegated role, and then you need to convert the lab level R&D node to this, right? So this is the one actually that you will propose as a part of the standard, right? You need to be form. There will be some specific forms, so it supports you, right? And the crowd's ready. So it kind of very similar to the what you talk about in the terms of a standard and then format of standard they try to generate. And then in the finally it have you that everything get required and then in the for your standard activities, right? So it done, right? Starting from the scenario, your input scenario, it try to support you through your like innovation process, right? But it is different from traditional tool is because it have a knowledge about what the standard process and the future direction of the standard, especially for the 60. So it understand complex situation, and then it try to support you, right? It's a case by case, right? Because it's depending on what kind of area you want to do, explore new innovation. It support you that the well with the white space, and then it try to understand, make you understand that whether they can be like as a standard, and then they try to understand, make you understand that why they can be a standard part, and changing to like a more like a standard ready, and finally support you if you are involved in the standard activities, and your innovation will be converted to the standard language, right? And then it's through that requirement like simulation is done, and then it verifies, simulate that it will be okay, right? So it really is supporting tool, right? Because that, and then through this process, actually, the human expert is involvement is very important. Like, you should look at every step, right? I'm not expert in this area because I was expert up to a certain time, and but actually after that I became a pattern attorney. So rather than just directly innovate, I'm doing this kind of thing. I'm not doing kind of like traditional kind of pattern just the drafting, right? Because I'm involving in the IP in mind and then in the also innovation process. But actually, the mostly I'm working for the supporting ecosystem, right? Like this. So I don't have any like a deep level understanding of the each individual R&D. So I cannot verify that whether it's done good or not, right? I just have a sense that based on my control of the over the multiple agentic AI framework, it working better, right? Because that's show you snapshot. So this is one thing that agentic AI can help you in standard innovation, also like having you developing your SAPs. Okay, so I will stop because it can take as many different scenarios you have it. Okay, so this is a final one that I shared this year, right? And then not many people attend today, but because I'm going to share, so I have a list of this one. I have about 400 people already in my webinar, so I'm going to share everything with them. And so I'm not sure because I cannot verify that whether my work is really working because unless he is actually involving 60 innovation. I actually the invite in my network actually I have about 100 they are 60 engineer, so I invited them, but yeah, because they haven't made time or not interest, so I cannot verify. But Andy, as we discussed, it'll take time because sometimes they find that it's useful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you just, like
You
you
see
said, you
that,
just got to
right?
be persistent.
Yeah, you
And
see that this is to me as my like as of I was an innovator in the before 3Z. Um, I think this will be very useful. That if I have this kind of tool when I was an engineer, like back to 30 years ago, 20 years ago, then a really, really powerful tool, but I cannot verify because I don't have anyone to actually to verify unless they look at it
sure.
yeah. So but I hopefully that based on my basic idea that and that agent AI can support this kind of thing, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah. I mean, I've been looking at it myself just with for patient healthcare with wearables and monitoring.
hmm
And just because of the adaptability that it's going to provide for individual care, I
hmm
mean, that's just going to be like amazing, I think, for healthcare in general.
hmm
Where you can just be monitored like wherever you're living at or facility you're at, versus even having to go to a exam or see a doctor or live on the premise. I mean,
hmm
that in itself is going to just be amazing.
hmm yeah.
That's
So
how I feel, at least.
yeah, so I want to just up the record that stop